We're really here to hear, how did Scott Nelson get so rich? That's the name of this talk.
You changed the headline to even something more clickbaity.
Yep. How can you be as rich as Scott Nelson? Starring Scott Nelson.
What an intro. What an
Let's
intro.
just
Thanks.
a little encouragement for him, guys. Come on.
Yeah. So the whole key to this is you get a little bit of funding. You buy the Bitcoin dip, right? And then wait for it to go up, and
come on.
Boom, instant millionaire.
There's a medical device in there somewhere. That's how
where do you want to start though, Joey? I mean, the title was definitely catchy for sure. It is true, although I think one title I read, it was 16 months. It was actually 6.
Yeah, I wrote 6.
Okay, a previous title said 16, so it is true. You can go read the press release. But there's obviously some caveats. So I'll start with like the deal that was struck, or at least at a high level.
Remind the kind folks at home, what is your medical device?
So we're working on endovascular catheters. So more specifically, intravascular lithotripsy.
Wait a minute. Oh, right. This isn't about your Juve. That's just another side business where you're making a lot of money.
This isn't about Juve. No.
Who here needs funding? Which of you guys needs funding? Because Scooter's got a lot of excess cash right now.
No, that's not the case. That's not the case.
Car needs some funding. So what do you need money for? What would you do with all of Scott's money?
Well, we for manufacturing, distribution, and storage
of your
frog filter removal of glass. We just to send to our licensing partners.
Sounds like a good use of capital to me. So I'll get you with Scott afterward. He's looking for a place to park his money.
Yeah. So I guess maybe I should start out with like a little bit about my background, and we can kind of get into like the nuts and bolts of how this went down.
You're going to take us through all that Medtronic stuff again?
No, I'm not.
Right.
I'm not. That's too boring. No, but spent most of my career in traditional medical device, primarily the cardiovascular arena. Grew up in sales and marketing. And then kind of my last, what I call like real kind of W-2 type of job, was at Medtronic back in 2015. And then since then have spent time in a wide variety of kind of early stage projects. Some more digital health, some consumer health. One of the companies that I started was Juve, which Joe mentioned. And then started this particular company, which we'll talk about, Fastwave Medical, in early 2021. So February of 21 is when we technically formed the company. And then we're able to close on an investment, kind of a hybrid seed round. We called it a pre-A, but a seed, somewhere in between a seed and an A round, plus a milestone-based acquisition agreement, kind of in one transaction. And it's not an option to acquire; it's an obligation to acquire based on regular development and regulatory milestones. So, yeah, that's. I mean, hopefully we could talk a little bit more about that, because that's probably what's most interesting.
I've never heard of that.
The people listening.
I've never heard of it's almost like a put, like you're required.
You got it.
To sell if something happens, and it's just a matter of if we work hard enough and we get our approvals and such, you must buy us. Who agrees to that?
Well, it's becoming a lot more popular these days, especially as large strategics, sort of sit on the sideline and aren't doing a lot of internal R&D. They're flush with cash though, so they've got a lot of cash on their balance sheets, and so this is a good way for them to acquire technology at earlier stages at somewhat fair valuation, right? Without getting into VC type of traditional kind of VC startups, where you're into your Series B, Series C, Series D rounds where the valuation is through the roof, So
Daniel will be calling on you because he used the word strategics.
I'm ready, Joe.
All right.
Yeah, so these types of deals are definitely becoming more and more popular. One that stands out recently was Cardiovascular Systems, which is a publicly traded, I would say, mid-cap company in Minneapolis. They did a deal with Chansu Vascular that was very similar for a drug-coated balloon technology. Gosh, how long ago was that announced? Maybe a year ago now, something like that. So very, very similar type of deal. And it's just becoming a lot more popular. These types of structures. It's a little bit more risky for the strategic early on, because they're sort of betting on the team, but if the team can execute, it's a great deal for them, because they're getting in our case, a technology like intravascular lithotripsy with a, close to $5 billion, TAM for a pretty low.
Sorry, TAM?
Total addressable market.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was kind of the deal at a high level. And so so it's on our team now to not only develop the technology, but we have to hit certain regulatory milestones, all non-clinical, right? So we don't have to go too far into the life cycle of the company before, change of control.
Scott, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
How much did you have to show them? Do you just have a proof? Do you have a proof of design, or you just have what did you have to show them to kind of get your first seed from them?
Great question. Yeah, so we just showed a few prototypes, and then a fair amount of IP. Yeah, and then they were kind of, it's probably most people understand it at this early stage. It usually comes down to that, right? Like mostly,
that's what I was wondering about.
What type of IP do you have, and who's working on this? You know what I mean? Okay. So yeah, that's what we had, and yeah, and then we approached the process pretty intentional, right? And that also was, I think, key to get a deal of this size done, in relatively quickly.
So they have agreements after certain milestones to give you more funding to help keep propelling everything forward, basically, to keep hitting further milestones.
Yeah, the capital infusion it's not like there's only 2 tranches, and so it's not super spread out. And we expect to hit these milestones within a couple years, maybe at most 3, but most likely, closer to 2 to 2.5.
So is it giving you enough runway, or is it kind of expecting you to run a little lean at the same time? You got it. Yeah. And so, I mean, when you look at FastWave, there's really only 2 employees, myself and our COO. And then, we're working with, the rest of the team is really outsourced consultants and freelancers.
So you mentioned IP, and I assume that early on you only had applications, right, or provisionals?
We did, yeah.
It's pretty risky of them to go for it, because you might or might not get the granted patents. How did you navigate that?
Yeah,
that they were valuable enough.
It's a great question. I mean, that's probably where we spent most of the time in diligence. It was about a 4 to 5 month diligence process, and so they went very, very deep. I think they engaged three different law firms to evaluate our IP, and at that point we just had 4 provisionals. So nothing granted at that point, but yeah, kind of a bit risky, but they definitely did a lot of diligence. It wasn't just Joe's uncle, in the basement looking at the IP. They had a pretty broad team evaluating it.
Joe has an uncle? Sorry. Hey, Scott, on a serious note, first, congratulations. The second thing was, when you mentioned the requirement on was it a market, was it a sale that needed to happen, or was it development and IP?
No, if I understand you correct, are you talking about the milestones?
Paul?
Yeah.
Was it IP development, product enhancement, or was it a client acquisition?
No. So there's no commercial milestones at all. It's all development. So product development, okay. and then regulatory milestones. Yeah. So no clinical.
So just on those milestones, the IP the value was $100 million. There was no market penetration yet.
No, not at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
That was less of a hi, John, and more of a what? I mean, it's just inconceivable to me. What is this concept that no one else thought of, that you've just developed in half a year, and here's a check for $100? This is come on, this is a joke.
It's not a joke. No, but in all seriousness, these types of deals are becoming more and more popular, because the traditional startup approach for med tech, right, is you get a little seed funding, right, whether it's from friends and family, angels, super angel syndicates, etc. Try to do as much as you can, with relatively, little funding, maybe apply for a few non-dilutive grants, those take forever. And then you're kind of locked into whatever you're working on, right, at that point, even if you're awarded a grant. So it's this slow slog, right, until you get to maybe a seed round with maybe a slightly more sophisticated investors at that point. And then once you raise a seed round, you typically get pretty diluted right off the bat, right off the bat. And then if you're able to, execute from there, it's Series A, Series B, Series C, with VC and maybe sometimes private equity. And I mean, that's like a 7 to 10 year process. By that point, founders are diluted so much. Who's making the people that are making the most money at that stage are the money folks, right? The VCs, and that's their model, right? Not to discredit them, but there's from my perspective, and I think the team that I'm working with at the incubator that helped form this company. we're approaching it a lot different, right? We think we can go from 0 to 1 a lot faster with a lot less money. And, we need to kind of prove this out. But there's legs there already. And I think there's an appetite from investors to just move faster and not, they want a little bit more swings at the plate. In terms of evaluating different technologies at lower valuations, rather than having to wait for a startup to make progress over the course of 3 to 5 years and end up having to pay $500 million for something that's maybe not worth that much money. So yeah, I think there's a lot more activity, there's a lot more action to be had kind of with this type of approach.
Daniel, are you seeing this? Because this seems, the guys who made that arrangement with you must have an amazing portfolio where they can afford to just have a couple of them completely strike out for one of these to work. I've never heard of anything like this. I know it's like, oh, well, the other way is such a slog. You have to this and that. Like, you mean like, oh, everybody trying to get money? Sanjeev, you're doing a round now. And I know that you're very confident that you're going to hit your number, but just go the scooter route. Just have some guy say, yeah, here's 100 million. It sounds like, okay, like you've been in this game before. What's going on here?
So I missed the early part of what Scott was saying.
Rich. You missed the part where he showed up 6 months ago, said, I have an idea. And someone was like, oh my God, I'll give you $100 million if you can get clearance on it. That's pretty much it, right, Scooter?
And actually,
that's the Joe Hage version. Yeah.
A lot of the VCs actually say that, if you can get FDA clearance, we can put in so much, etc. Right? So Scott is right. Going to an incubator actually helps, or an accelerator, because now you got other resources. So in a way, actually, Joe, what you've created is an accelerator with everyone, right? Which we can tap on these resources. And that actually helps with moving things along, getting funding. You can get angel funding and friends and family much earlier, what they call the 3 Fs, fools, friends, and family, right? But getting, again, what is called the smart money takes a lot more effort. So I've been pitching to angel investors. I've got a fair amount already in, some micro VCs already in. And now we are talking to corporates and as well as to VCs. And I expect in the next, the angel round should be completed, or bridge to Series A should be completed in the next couple of months. And the Series A in the next 4 to 6 months, we should be completing that.
And this sounds to me traditional. You started with friends and family, you had some angel, you're going to A, then B. And Scott's like, yeah, that's a lot of work. Why don't you just find some guy to promise you a lot of money?
Well, again, finding that one person is also a lot of work, right? If you can find someone like that, that's great. But it's unlikely that you would. You have to, as they say, you have to kiss a lot of frogs to get one prince, right?
He knew where the prince was right off the bat. So I really want to, I'm having fun with you, but it's just because I'm mystified by this. So February, you had an idea, or some other guy had an idea?
No, we started working on this in like late 2020. Yeah. Okay. But then officially formed the company in early.
So who is this friend of yours? Let's call him Bill. You and Bill know one another from what?
Who's the friend? Who's the Bill? The investor?
This Fastwave is you and one other guy.
Oh, no. No. So we actually formed Fastwave, partners of Big Sky Biomedical, which is an incubator that I'm involved with. What
does that mean, involved with, in this context?
It's a classic incubator, right? It's a classic device incubator. So I'm one of the partners.
Okay, so you have invested in other technologies.
All of our own technology, right? Yeah. So it's not like a fund. We invest in all of our own portfolio companies. Yeah. Okay, so the only company in which you've invested is your own. Yeah, correct. But Fastwave is not the only one. Okay, and is Juve one of them? No. How many companies are you working on? There's another one where we just closed on a seed round. Hasn't been announced yet, but we just closed on a seed round. So there's. And what is that product category? It's for chronic venous insufficiency.
Okay.
Another
so two
interventional
cardio
investment.
things.
Yeah, 2 cardiovascular things. Yeah, and there's a few other stealth projects that we're working on too.
Okay.
So the model is an incubator. It's a sort of a pass-through LLC, and then we set up. Once we feel like the technology is ready to, we're ready to kind of take the next step with the technology, or the idea is good enough, then we'll form a C corp around it, right, for an individual entity. That way, like all of the IP resides in that individual entity. It doesn't get sort of noisy and messy. And then it's a lot cleaner for any potential, investor or strategic to acquire or invest in. So that's kind of the model. And our secret sauce is really, I mean, just to set the stage, like the company that we closed the seed round on, that's not Fastwave. So it's a different one. It's called Crossfire Medical. We started working on that back in like late 2015, early 2016, something like that. I can't remember the exact time frame. We kind of struck out at that point, right? We did the traditional approach, right? Actually made a lot more progress, actually got to what we consider probably closer to design freeze and the PDP. And we ended up striking out. We had one deal on the table to invest, pretty diluted, so it wasn't the great terms, but we were going to take it, ended up falling through. So we struck out that time, had to put a pause on Crossfire, and then circled back around with the same group of engineers that I was working on in early 2020, so early to mid 2020. And we changed a few things, and really kind of aligned incentives in a better way. And then a couple of the partners at Big Sky, the incubator, they also run Switchback Medicals, which is a contract manufacturer. And that's huge to this model, because our approach is not to take a technology and go raise a Series A, Series B, and take that traditional approach. Our like where we're best at is going from 0 to 1. And because of our partnership with Switchback, we can do that extremely fast, right? They build catheters all day long. And so we can do that extremely fast, and allows us to iterate very, very quickly, much faster than most accelerators and incubators are super bloated and slow, just like strategics are.
Let me put in a quick pitch. Remember that my friend Andre there is a contract manufacturer, and my friend Paul over there is last mile manufacturing. So whatever assembly has to happen, and then fulfillment and all of that, you just saw his little video. Yeah. He's a guy to consider. And Greg's smiling there because I think you make little parts of things. Remind me what you do, Greg. Come off mute. Greg, you're on mute.
One time my mouse doesn't want to work and gets the screen to get over to hit the mute button, it doesn't want to go, right? So I make power supplies for medical devices.
Such as?
Already meets 6061 3.1. So.
Such as, what's a power supply to?
Power supply powers all the electronics in the unit.
For example?
Imaging devices.
Okay.
So anything used for catheter imaging, stuff like that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, just a little commercial for my buddies there.
Do you have a video? Do we have a video to show?
Not for everybody. No,
okay.
I haven't made them yet. They get freebies, and then there's like, come on.
That was a good video. I liked it.
FDA certified.
I liked it. I liked the video. It was a good script.
He really fought me. He was like, I really hate this. I'm like, you're a natural. It just took 3 hours.
I'm still squirming.
That's good. It was good. It was really good. Yeah.
I do about 3 videos, 4 videos a week on my TikTok channel, like 1 minute.
You have TikTok? You're like the only one in the medical device space.
Before we hang up, Paul, I want you to floss for us.
What?
Okay. The young kids will get the joke. For Ortega, you have a comment.
Yeah, I've got a question for you. So, really interesting funding structure. I'm curious, are you able to raise capital from other investors? Like, for example, if the seed funding that this strategic or whatever provides ends up not being sufficient for you to hit the milestones that would trigger the acquisition, are you guaranteed that you're going to get additional funding from them, or are you able to then take this to other funders? And what are the implications you think of having this? Because it's sort of, it sets a floor for what you can get for the company, but it seems to also set a ceiling. I presume you have to sell it to them at that valuation, even if it turns out that somebody else comes in and says, I love this, I give you 300. So maybe just some of those little nuances that go with that kind of deal structure.
You're a smart man. Those are good questions. So I can't disclose, like, as you can probably imagine, like a lot of the nuances of the deal. But I'll say this: great question, and for anyone that's like ever is involved in something like this, definitely think that through, right? For like in our particular situation, no, we intentionally did not limit ourselves from going and raising additional capital if needed. And I would also tend to, be biased towards structuring a deal where you don't have to do that either, right? So whether it's in the form of non-dilutive bridge financing or just, bridge financing that maybe is even diluted in case you need to tap into it. Yeah, the great question in our situation, no, but definitely want to be thinking through that for sure. And that's one of the keys to like it sounds so cliche for like the incubator. It's all about the team. But like in our scenario, it really was. And I mentioned that Crossfire example from 4 to 5 years ago where we struck out. We were missing some components to the team structure. And when one of the newer partners to Big Sky is a guy by the name of JC Sun, awesome guy. We just met him in late 2020, and he's exceptional at cross-border deals, or really any sort of early stage medical device deal. And so being able to really tap into his expertise, through that process, right, and knowing how to structure these types of deals, they're a win-win, for us as well as the investor. I mean, that was key. But those are great questions, and definitely should be considered for anyone else that's kind of entertaining this type of deal or transaction.
So what's the concept exactly?
For the device?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so so traditionally, in order to open up an artery, right, whether it's an artery that runs down your leg or in your heart, that's has a fair amount of calcific burden. You use a balloon or a stent. I know Nick knows all about this. He's at Boston Sci right now, so he knows all about these devices. Yeah, so balloons, stents, atherectomy. Those are kind of the tools of choice. Atherectomy is like a device where you're basically kind of scraping the plaque out of the vessel and kind of sucking it back into your catheter. Those are the three most common modalities. And intravascular lithotripsy is a way to deliver shock waves inside an angioplasty balloon, and those shock waves are actually delivered through the vessel tissue to break up plaque that's actually positioned in the media or the middle part of the blood vessel, which is traditionally really hard to treat, right? If the plaque burns in kind of on the inside of the blood vessel, it's hard to get to, and so yeah, that's the technology. It's delivering shock waves, shock waves inside a balloon catheter to disrupt.
Had no one done this before?
Yeah, there's one company actually that was first to market, kind of created the category. They applied lithotripsy, right, that's commonly known as, most people know lithotripsy for its application to break up kidney stones, outside the body, extracorporeal lithotripsy. But they applied the technology inside the blood vessel. And so they were the first to market. Daniel Hawkins, Todd Brinkman were the two founders. Todd's kind of a serial entrepreneur. Same with Daniel, but then Daniel started Avail Med Systems, which is
so what was your insight, and how did you come up with something that did not challenge their IP?
It's a good question. So we were tracking a pretty significant IP litigation over the past few years, and there was a lot of interesting kind of things happening towards the kind of middle part of 2020. And so yeah, that sort of opened the doors to additional IP and for a lot more kind of activity in the space in general.
Did you check with the patent detective, Tunde?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of startups that are so IP aware as you are, and kind of track litigation and see where that is going. What were the two companies that were litigating?
Shockwave, who kind
Shockwave,
of created the category, yeah, and then there was another large strategic cardiovascular company that was trying to invalidate a lot of their patents, and they were successful in doing that.
They were successful.
Yeah, and so
Who
we
was
were.
that?
Somebody else did the work for you. That's
right.
smart.
That's right. Yeah,
So the company that invalidated them, are they competitors of yours?
Yeah, technically now, actually, they just issued a press release that they're finally getting into the market after spending, gosh, probably 7-8 figures, right? In this lawsuit with Shockwave. Yeah, so they are getting into the market. So I guess they would be competitors, or they'll probably be competitors.
Do they have IP?
Nothing granted. Nothing granted. Yeah.
Or published, yeah.
Yeah.
Sanjeev,
you want to keep an eye on that for sure.
Yeah.
You can set up alerts so you can like get emails for that, and yeah, it's important.
That'd be interesting. Even I guess most of us wouldn't know how to do that, Tunde. So maybe you can teach us that at some future time. Sanjeev, you had a comment?
Yes, Scott, do you license IP, and do you have ERs in there who incubate the companies, or do you guys do it yourself, or you incubate it and then get someone to come in after that?
Yeah, no, we incubate the technology. We definitely don't kind of take part in like, patent trolling of any type. This was just in this particular instance, we had been tracking this case because it was, from our perspective, being kind of deep in the cardiovascular space, it was pretty big news, and we didn't really think that anyone was really paying attention to it. And if in this scenario, CSI, or cardiovascular systems, was successful with their approach, their case to validate these patents, it's going to be, we expected it to be pretty big news. And as it turns out, we were right, and so yeah, I mean, good timing and good fortune, but like that's part of the deal, right? With any startup, right? A lot of it's
Really
based on
intrigued by
timing.
this. For those of you, I'm trying to see who on the call might be with me all the way back since 2016. I don't know, maybe Nick. Do you remember Maurizio? I don't know how to, Beccione, I think you say. He used to report to Bill Gates.
Bill Gates, yeah.
And he was at International Ventures. And pejoratively, people would say that he was a troll, a patent troll, and they would scoop them all up. He's going to be at 10X. He's going to speak again this year, which is really thrilling. He's on a new venture, but this concept of, I found something in litigation in patents, and that identified an opportunity, and we seized it, and some guy's writing us $100 million check. Just sounds like a really good deal. We should get like a cabal of people. Tunda could be our leader, and we could all like get alerts and then make stuff. What do you say, Andrea?
Well, it's risky because usually the party that is starting the litigation or the IPR or whatever it is, they obviously have a very big vested interest. They're not going to spend millions of dollars in validating patents if they don't have an interest, which usually also means their own patents.
Again, so maybe I zoned out when. Hard
what do you mean right there?
They did the litigation. You're like, ooh, an opportunity, and you did it.
Well, I mean, they just announced it, or they just released a press release, or issued a press release, I guess, is probably the better way to say that. A week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, announcing that they were in the game, so to speak. And so, as it turns out, they had they were working on something. I'm not entirely sure how far along they are, other than what their press release says.
And how many patents do you have on your thing?
We have 4 provisionals.
Okay.
Yeah, 4 provisionals. Yeah.
Eddie, you've been reminding me that it's intellectual ventures. Thank you. But you had a comment, and I know that you have been perpetually trying to raise money. So maybe Scott can just take you under his wing and give you all the money you need.
To be frank, I am not actively trying to raise money. Because I find that many of the funders have outsized expectations. So I have tried to do most of it on my own. And I have managed to make it work.
But
Finally, we are at the
liquidated all of your savings doing it, no?
That's true, yes. and not paying myself a salary for now 30 years.
I'm sorry, how many?
30.
Man, you were really rich in the 80s.
I was just extremely successful as a pioneering clinician in developing much sought after procedures that relieve pain and also enable patients to undergo major surgeries without having to bank blood or receive transfusions. And I practiced
medicine. Came from the telephone technology that you sold to, was it Philips?
Oh yeah, Philips Consumer Communications. That's my first big project to which I devoted more than a decade of my life.
I interviewed him back in God knows what, 2012, and I have a whole write-up on Medical Marcom. I'll find it and share it with you. But this is one interesting dude. But what was your relevant question? Sorry for the tangent again. You guys are very patient. I appreciate that. What was your relevant question for this conversation, Eddie?
I didn't think I asked a question. You were the one who asked me.
No, what was the first thing you wrote here in the chat box? Was Shockwave's IP validated? Go ahead.
Okay. Was the company that held a patent in this area, Shockwave, were their patents invalidated via a inter-parties review before the PTAB, Patent Trial and Appeals Board? Was that what happened, Scott?
Yeah, all of that was on. Well, I guess it depends on what time frame you're looking at, but yeah, all of that was ongoing as we were working on this project. Yeah.
Yeah, the PTAB, just so that everyone knows, has two functions. It's now in its 10th year and created after the Americas Invent Act, and it has served to destroy the livelihood of many independent inventors. And big tech companies would infringe, and when sued for infringement, would challenge the validity of the patent before the PTAB. And the PTAB has so far invalidated 83.some%, almost 84% of all reviews that came before it. And it's adjudicated by what's called administrative judges. They are not real judges. They don't have the legal training. Many of them have very basic scientific background, like a bachelor's degree. And so they are overruling patent examiners who are the experts in their individual areas and reversing 84%, 83 to 84% of all reviews that came before it. So there's a concerted effort on the part of independent inventors in an organization called US Inventors, and I belong to that, to abolish the PTAB because it's just getting out of hand. Many people don't realize this, but the only
You're smiling, you have a comment there?
Yes, I have a different opinion, and there's lots of opinions on this. First of all, the PTAB judges, most of them are former examiners, so they'll have the same sort of expertise as examiners. They're engineers. Second of all, the patents are invalidated because they should never have been granted in the first place. So if you're mad, you should be mad at the patent office and their crappy prosecution of the patents and not finding the prior art when it's supposed to be found. And I do understand the frustration of startups and inventors who, do get a patent granted and are investing lots of money and, careers and companies and so forth. And then years later to have theirs invalidated by a lot of times a big company with lots of money. But really the bad player here is the USPTO, who's not doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, if
and
I could just...
And because of that, it actually, the responsibility, I say, falls onto the applicant to do their own due diligence before filing. That you shouldn't count on the patent office that whatever patent they give you is actually a strong patent. As crazy as that sounds, that's not the reality.
Very true.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's very true. It's very true. My take on this is, and I'm obviously, is probably most people imagine, I tend to be, I don't mind taking risks, I guess is probably the best way to say that. So for all the med tech entrepreneurs that get stuck in the weeds looking at IP, just move forward, take risks. Like all of that stuff will shake out in the end. But if you sit there and wait to feel like 99% confident about your IP, that's you're never gonna get.
This is a guy who lived in Minneapolis, was clearing about 2 bills, and had how many children? 4, 5?
I've got 5 now. Yeah.
And then he moved to California. He's like, yeah, let's take a risk.
Let's go. Let's go. Yeah.
Most people with that profile are what is the word? Homeless. I think that's the word. Andre, you had a comment?
Although I respect Andrea and her comments, I have to say that implicit in a medical device that's been patented, and you go through all the effort with the examiner, I think there's a validity that you have to accept at that point, and just now letting the same organization through the PTAB undo what was done before is just not fair. So I'm with Eddie on this 100%, and I think the PTAB should be abolished immediately.
This sounds like it's almost like it's like a little bit of a political debate. Who's next?
A little bit.
I mean, Joking aside, let me just give another example on this topic. So I was involved in a consulting type of capacity for a private equity company that wanted to make a very, very large investment in a very popular wearable company, consumer wearable company. I'm not going to name the name, but valuation at this round was, I think they were in their Series C or Series D, so it was over $1 billion valuation. They were making a very very large investment. One of the questions I asked was like, what is, I mean, they've clearly got like a good patent family, or what appears to be a solid patent family. Like how concerned are you that any of this stuff will actually hold up? Like how good are these patents? And their response was like, yeah, they're okay, but the brand was awesome, right? They had serious revenue, super high growth, very, very high NPI scores, across the board. The brand was like, was looked upon very favorably. And so, I guess that gives it, that's the reason I tell that story. It's like, I mean, the IP doesn't have to be awesome. You know what I mean? You can execute in other ways, right? If you've got an awesome brand, a great brand, your IP doesn't have to be perfect, and people are still willing to invest or, partner or collaborate, so that's why I mentioned earlier, like if you're stuck in, if IP is a serious constraint, you know what I mean? And you're trying to look for the perfect kind of filing, I just don't, I mean, you're never gonna get anything off the ground, so my take.
I agree with Scott. I mean, you file the IP, move forward, and down the road, you'll get your patent maybe 3-4 years down the road, but you can't keep waiting until the patent is granted. You got to move forward, and get this thing done. At the end of the day, it's not just the IP, it's the freedom to operate which exists. So ultimately, what ends up happening is if someone gets sued, you end up compromising, you do a cross-licensing deal and continue on.
Yeah, I agree with the freedom to operate, that a lot of entrepreneurs forget about that, and they think that, oh, I have a patent, it's going to be granted, I can go ahead and do whatever the patent says. And that is not the case. There's plenty of other patents that you could be infringing, and it's a risk.
Not only do I believe that to be a risk, I think it's a very significant one, because if you do not take the risk of being liable for infringement seriously, you could find all your efforts go down the drain. What Sanjeev said about taking out a cross license certainly is a possible option, but you don't always get to have that option, because if the competitor doesn't want you, I mean, if the patent holder doesn't want you to also be on the marketplace, they have every right to deny you that, and they will crush you and basically buy you out for pennies on the dollar if they have to even do that. And there is a big gamble. I mean, for example, I first started out inventing a very dramatic and new way of treating wounds in what's called expansile negative pressure wound therapy. That is different from anything that's out there right now.
This is the link that I shared in the chat, and Eddie, for laughs, the interview I posted on September 18, 2012.
Oh, goodness.
Mm-hmm.
So, but in 2017, I spent a whole year devising an IP strategy and file 5 patents all on one day. Now, normally people say file as soon as you can, because the first to file is a very important thing to establish. But in this particular case, because my IP encompasses an entire therapeutic system, if I file one today and then file something related tomorrow, what I disclose today will serve as prior art and stop me from getting my patent the next day and the next day and the next. So it was a tremendous gamble to prepare such a comprehensive portfolio of IP applications and file them all on the same day and cross-reference them all as if they become one gigantic, massive patent application that will allow ongoing divisional applications, continuations in parts. But anyway, it was a big gamble that paid off. And I have carved a fortress for this group of IPs. And that then makes it difficult for other people to break in and take away my market share. But you need a very good patent attorney in order to execute that.
Scooter, take it back.
Can I just mention one thing here about the whole IP attorneys? I'm not involved in the medical devices directly. I'm not involved in inventing anything fantastic like you guys are. But for startups to get involved with patent attorneys, it's a huge amount of money. Money that they can, like we've done, you can quite comfortably invest in getting the product done, doing the risk bit at the start. Because if you have to invest in the patent attorneys before you get to actually do anything, your friends and family money is gone, and you're the fool left holding the bag with maybe a patent, but you've no product, you've nothing to do. So I'm kind of on the fence about the whole fighting for the patent first. Just thought I'd share my gem from Europe.
Yeah, and I do want to give Scott back the podium because this is his presentation, but you don't have to pay for expensive patent attorneys, right? There's patent agents who can write your patent application. They're much, much cheaper than an attorney. You can use people like me to make sure that before you even engage with a patent attorney, you find out whether there is prior art out there, whether you have freedom to operate. So there's other kinds of patent professionals you can go to that are significantly cheaper. And maybe you get a patent attorney for like the last step, but unfortunately, people don't know about this.
You know, I think if we can call you Tunde on the program, maybe we need to have you do a presentation at 10X on this, but it's conditional on how we address you.
We'll have to do NVA if I'm going to be in any public conference.
We'll discuss that after the call. Scooter, tell us more.
No, this ended up being like, how to say no to IP attorneys and, sell your company for millions of dollars anyway. Maybe we should rewrite the headline for this.
Maybe for next week. No, I have someone for next week.
No, joking aside, it's a good topic. And is it Richard? Is it? Yeah. I mean, it's a good point. Like that's kind of what I was sort of getting at earlier, is you could end up circling the runway forever, spending endless amounts of money, caught in IP like limbo land without actually building anything. You know what I mean? And so, and I say that because I'm not advising to not do the basics, right? Not get some sort of FTO, right? Ultimately, an FTO or freedom to operate is usually the value goes up depending on who's on the letterhead, so to speak, right? But doing some sort of like freedom to operate search, and then getting some IP file, but then allocate the rest of your budget towards actually building something that could be of value. Otherwise it's going to be a tough slog.
Daniel?
Yeah, Scott, I just wanted one question before we move away from the conversation. I was just curious, how did the obligation to buy come about in the process? It's a really creative solution here.
Yeah, so we saw these types of deals happening more often, right? So we knew there was probably an interest in this type of approach, and that's the structure we led with out of the gate. Like, this is what we were interested in, this is what we want to do, and because of that allowed us to kind of take the lead with the type of terms that we were looking for. So, and again, kind of our model is sort of rooted in what we feel like our strength is kind of going from 0 to 1. So like the closer we get to
saying that, but that is such an uncommon expression. And we say 0 to 60.
0 to 60.
0 to 1 is like, I could walk 0 to 1.
That's right. It was, I mean, are people familiar with that concept, 0 to 1?
Well, I'm familiar. Okay, fine, great. I'm a mechanical and electrical engineer. It's all about Borges. Go ahead, tell us all about your doctorate. Go on.
It's like it's a famous book by Peter Thiel, 0 to 1. It's like probably the hardest and most value creative part of a process is going from like nothing to something, 100%. And then you've got a lot of incremental value that's built upon that as you expand it. But a lot of value is created in that 0 to 1.
Everyone's
read that book, man.
It's not about the book. It's about decades of car advertising, where they say you go to from 0 to 60 in however many seconds.
That's not the point. 0 to 1 is logarithmic. 1 and above is geometric.
Okay, everybody's so effing smart on this call. Just watch more TV. I'm telling you, that's where the zeitgeist is.
Andre, I like that.
Yeah, Andre, you just knocked it out of the park, brother.
Yeah, I like it. You need a little intro video, Joe. Every webinar, Andre gets on, does a little video about.
I know now. Whenever I want to seem smart, I just say, "Guys, you're not thinking logarithmically."
Yes. No, you're not thinking algorithmically, right? That's where the value creation is at, 0 to 1. algorithmically.
I'm lost.
Anyway, yeah. So, but no. To get back to your question, Daniel. That's kind of like we feel like we're best in that kind of stage, right? And, and a lot of that's rooted in our collaboration with Switchback Medical at the contract manufacturing our collaboration with them. We can just turn around prototypes so much faster and so much quicker than most, right? And just to give you an example, we had a call. Yes, I was on a call yesterday with some engineers that were part of a different accelerator, different incubator, arguably more well known than ours. And because they didn't have acute or direct access to a contract manufacturer, they were kind of still in idea mode, right? Showing graphics on a PowerPoint and not able to actually show a thing, right? Like, here's our thing that we built, and it actually does sort of like we've been able to demonstrate feasibility of some type. And because we can do that so much faster, that's what we'd like to think that we're probably best in that arena. So we're looking for structures that are kind of similar to the one we did with FastWave, where they're not sort of based in clinical or commercial milestones. They're more based in our ability to execute fast on the development and reg side.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, having a prototype in any type of fundraising round or acquisition M&A transaction, having a prototype, having that model has an immense impact to be able to hold it, feel it, play with it. So
yeah.
Jorg, tell the kind folks at home what you're doing at TechFlex. I know you're my client. I should know the name of the product, but I worked with
know the name of the company too. You should know the name of the company too. TechFlex is a development organization doing medical device development, but we do it offshore engineering and onshore project management. So it's a bit of a different model than what you see for normal product development companies.
I've been working with him for a while to help tell a story, and basically his partner Anna was born in Ukraine. She knows these people because she's worked with them intimately, and they work for pennies on the dollar, and their education system in Ukraine is among the best in the world. So they really manage the heck out of the project. They have a weekly meeting with you, manage your expectations, and
we saw a gap. I mean, obviously big companies, strategics, et cetera, they can do product development anywhere they want. They can take advantage of low costs anywhere. But it's really startups and small and medium-sized businesses.
So banging out prototypes and things like that.
They don't have the connections or the resources to manage something like that. So that's what we offer.
Think about him next time, because I get 50% of everything he makes.
We need a video. We need another video.
There's so many videos out of this alone. I'm just going to go in the video production business.
Yeah.
Here, I'll make.
Actually, no, it's not as easy as it looks, because I went to Biomed, Silicon Valley, to make a video, but some people are just not ready for what Paul was ready for that day.
Paul was not ready for what Paul was.
Some clients' patience run out a little sooner than other clients' patience.
Oh my gosh!
Thank you. That's
if you're interested, you can see the website.
That's right, the one that we just launched.
Yes.
And improved last night.
So all of the design services and dev services are OUS then? Is that did I understand that right?
What's the difference between design and dev services?
Design meaning like ID, early stage kind of ideation and concepting, dev.
Yeah, so we have everything industrial design, mechanical engineering, electrical, firmware, software, all there.
Okay, cool.
For the kind folks at home, that's TechFlex, TechFlex -dev.
I put it in the chat just because.
I'm just thinking about thousands of people who will maybe hear this in a podcast or something.
What I'm really excited about, though, is going to 10X and seeing hopefully all of you there. So that's what I'm looking forward to, seeing people in real life.
Eddie's got some kind of lame Taiwan thing he's doing that day. And Andre, what's that, your 40th anniversary, and your wife said no.
You can't bring your wife to California for her anniversary? Come on.
Is it some big Italian thing? Why aren't you coming?
No, it actually is another an organization thing that we run. So
the Italian thing.
Yeah.
Julie, I've got to jump. I actually have to jump to ironically enough an IP call.
Yeah, for another 100 million.
How appropriate.
Not joking actually. So yeah.
Okay, are you accepting money from the folks on this call? Because we want to go for a ride with We want to go on a magic carpet ride for our
Yeah,
another-
little medical devices group kind of rolling fund. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Little crowdfunding.
Oh, I like that. I like the rolling fund model. That's good. Let's do that.
Yeah, Joey. 10x. Pass around the
Maybe
communion
that's a
plate.
session right there where we just pass around a hat and people just put in checks made out to, I don't know, it could be like Joe Hage or it could be Joe Hage Inc.
No, I think it should be the Joe Hage medical device rolling fund.
And then
we get scored
you get out what you put in.
the anchor sponsor.
Right. Okay.
Right. I like it. All
God,
right.
thank you for
We started
inspiring
with
this
a $99
conversation.
investment.
Thank you, Scott. That was great.
I know you're not sure, but
Thanks, man.
make every possible effort to come to 10X. Okay. I mean, I'd like to continue this conversation.
Yeah.
Tunda's going to be there. She's going to be having a conversation. You can pitch in. That'd be great.
All right. Thanks,
Guys,
everyone.
thanks for
Have a
making
good
my
weekend.
week.
Thanks.
See you later,
And
Scott.
I'll
See
see you
ya.
next week this time.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Right.